acknowledge our friends of the Brookline Library for sponsoring this program and programs like it. I also wanted to thank our community partners, Brookline Interactive Group, who will be streaming this program through Facebook, YouTube, and local cable channel 3 on RCN and Xfinity. This program is also being streamed through the library's Facebook page as well. I would also like to read a quick disclaimer before we begin. Participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care or advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. And with that, I will hand it over to Keith.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I was just blocking the sun a little bit. I was having a little trouble. I was squinting. So I don't know, do you guys have my picture on there? I see a different picture on my screen. Do you have me pinned?
This is Sharon. You seem fine on my.
Okay.
Things. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. So let's begin in mountain pose. So mountain pose is really our foundational pose, whether you do it standing or seated. So we'll start seated, but if you really feel like you want to stand, you can certainly do it standing. Just make sure your balance is okay. And mountain pose is grounding, feeling the feet touching the floor, starting all the way at the bottom. And then lift and spread the toes. So notice, I think to actually take it's almost warm enough to not have socks on. Yay. Looks like it'll be a nice weekend here. So we'll lift and spread the toes like this. And notice how my feet stay flat on the floor at the same time. So although I'm lifting my toes, the rest of my feet are resting. So really the tops of the feet here, right along here, are lifting the toes up. And let's try the fingers too at the same time. I'm going to relax the hands like this. So notice my hands are a little bit curved. And then I'm going to open and I'm going to lift up my fingers. So if you're looking sideways, they would look like this, and then they relax like this. Same as with the feet. So I'm lifting using the musculature on the top of the hands and the feet to lift and spread the fingers and the toes. So try that together. And then as you do it, tune into the feeling that you get, the feeling of the contraction in the hands, and see if you can make them align between the hands and the feet. In other words, as I lift my toes up, my fingers are lifting up. And then as I relax them, everything relaxes. And then see if you can make connection between the right hand and the right foot. Right hand and right foot. So almost like we've worked before where we imagine there's an attachment between the hand and the foot. So imagine there's an attachment between each of the fingers and each of the toes, like a puppet. So that when I lift up, they're lifting up together. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the left. And the only reason I'm doing them separately is sometimes it's easier than doing all four at once. So we're just lifting and feeling. So we're lifting and feeling. And then try all four together. See if you can be a puppet master where you're lifting up. You've got strings on your fingers that attach to your toes. You're lifting the fingers up and lifting the toes up. So we call this type of yoga hatha yoga, which is you can lower the arms down, give them a little roll backwards. Hatha yoga is the yoga of really the body or movement. Sometimes it's defined as force or effort. And it means that we use our body as a vehicle to unite everything that's happening with us. So that's body, mind, and our spirit as well. Whatever that means to you. And all those things may mean something slightly different to everyone. And then we're rolling the other way if you haven't changed directions. When you roll the shoulders, think about keeping the sides of the head and the neck soft. So the neck is not tensing when I lift my shoulders up. And the arms are actually kind of loose. They're just resting on the legs. So I'm just using the musculature right around the shoulder joint. And we'll do that a lot in our practice today. We'll focus on very specific parts of the body, making sure we keep the other parts of the body relaxed. And that's another thing about yoga, is that we focus, we use our mind to focus ourselves in a particular part of the body. So ultimately, hatha yoga, this focus on the body, this feeling the body and being in touch with the body, becomes like a meditation. And that everything else sort of dissolves around it because you're focused on feeling what's going on. And one of the big ones, of course, is our breathing. So please go ahead, and if you want, well, remember, you sit up, let's sit up nice and tall first. So we've got our grounding in the feet that we were working on, and I'll turn sideways. The knee is over the ankle, so this is a 90-degree angle. And notice my thigh is parallel to the floor. So if you are short, you might need to put something under your feet to make the thigh parallel. And if you're tall and you end up, so if you're really tall, I'm not, but if you're tall, you end up with the knees sticking up like this, unless your chair is really tall, taller than normal. So if you're tall, you might want to sit on something. And then also the hips, the knees, and the toes are all pointed straight ahead. So I'm not turning my feet way out or turning them in. And if you need to for balance, feel free to walk the feet a little bit wider than hip width. Sometimes that provides a little more stability. So we have that triangular shape between the feet and the buttocks. And that's our stability when we sit. It's the same when we stand, by the way. So for anybody who's standing, I'll stand for a moment. And of course, you're welcome to join me if you want, or you can stay seated. They're both good ways to practice. And if you're standing, the triangle is just a little different. It's a taller triangle, but it's still there. And then sitting up nice and tall and extending the spine up. We can help the spine to extend, or we can learn to better extend the spine by using other parts of the body. So we can think about lifting the front ribs here. So you can even find your ribs. So you've got your belly, and you can come up until you get to the bony part, and we lift our ribs. And it is, my fingers are just barely touching the ribs here. So I'm not, there's no pain or discomfort here. It's just a little lifting. The idea is we get this micro movement of lifting the ribs up, and that micro movement helps to lift and extend the spine. And of course, the spine, extending the spine is small. The movements are small, because there's not that much room between the vertebra. There you have the discs, you have the vertebra, and you have the discs in between. Even when you use the muscles to pull the vertebra apart, there's only so much they go. And it's not very much, but it's the idea, and it's this gentle lifting, and we would call it axial elongation of the spine. Axial elongation of the spine, sitting up nice and tall. And perhaps the crown of the head is feeling light and lifting up towards the sky. So we have the feet grounded, pressing down gently. And then we have this lifting up the legs, to the hips, up the ribs, up the spine, and up through the crown of the head. The back of the neck here is relatively straight. So try not to lift the chin like this or tuck the chin in. Ideally, the face is facing straight ahead. And now let's bring our hands to the belly, or you're welcome to do that if you want. It helps to feel the belly that way, but certainly if you already feel it, then you don't need to. But we're noticing the belly going in and out with the breath. And each time you breathe in, each time you feel the belly going out, very gently press the feet into the floor and extend the spine up. So there's a lightness and a lifting that comes to the center of the body. So you could also take a block or a rolled up towel and place it between the thighs here. And it's about halfway between the knees and the groin. And we give a very gentle squeeze to help engage the inner thighs and to stabilize the pelvis here. So stabilizing the pelvis and also working to get all the musculature in the pelvic area to be firm so that we have a firm base from which to extend the spine. But you don't have to use these. And you can also, if you are using something, you can adjust the width to be most comfortable for you. So if your pelvis is a little wider, you might want something wider. Just make sure whatever you use is light enough so if it falls, it doesn't hurt your feet. So that brings us to one of the most important principles of yoga, which is nonviolence. Or in Sanskrit, we use the word ahimsa. And you hear that a fair amount in yoga. The idea of being nonviolent to ourselves and to others. And it's important. A lot of times we think about others, but it's also important to be nonviolent towards ourselves, treating us with kindness, treating ourselves with kindness. And when we begin to treat ourselves with kindness, sometimes it's easier to treat others. Feeling the belly going in and out. And one more thing before we do our more active part of the practice. I'm going to start with a sound. So just to listen and to use the listening as a tool to focus our attention. So this is our signal to really begin our class, to focus our attention. Listening closely to the sound. Tuning in fully with listening. And then listening to the silence once the sound goes away. A really nice part of the listening is when it disappears, the silence. And let's bring our palms together and we'll inhale and circle the hands around. Circling the hands around. The hands are riding up on the breath. So as we inhale, the hands rise up. So the hands are actually following the breath. Hands are following the breath up. And then the palms are circling around. And then they come together. And feel free. So you could also, if anybody's still standing, you could do this standing. So if you're tired of sitting, feel free to stand up. But it's really these positions are really your choice. And it's nice to vary our position. So varying the position means that the muscles and the bones aren't always in the same alignment. They get a chance to move into a different alignment And that's actually good for our posture. It's good for movement. And then we're going to go the other way. We're going to release the hands down. And then as I inhale, my palms float up and they come together. And they float down. So you're welcome to make the circles really large and reach way up if that feels comfortable. Or for some people, the shoulders won't allow that. And it's okay to make this sort of a circular motion as well, keeping the shoulders relaxed. So the important part is no matter whether I'm reaching way up or I'm not reaching as high, I'm keeping my shoulders relaxed. With my shoulders relaxed, I can keep the face relaxed. I can keep the eyes soft. I can keep the jaw released. So we talked before about these musculature, the muscles in some part of the body are moving or working and others are relaxed. If we end up, and it's very common because we're human beings, and it's very common for us to retain tension when we don't mean to, particularly in the neck and the shoulders, and also down in the pelvis, the pelvic area. So that's why it's important when we're working with the shoulders that we keep the neck relaxed and the face relaxed. So there isn't a sort of, there's no, when we're lifting, when we're efforting down here in our belly, our face isn't all contracted. So let's try rocking from side to side. So a little effort in the belly here. And see if you can keep a little smile on the face as you do this. And if you want more of a challenge, you can try lifting up a little bit higher and even going a little slower. A little slower is definitely harder. A little slower is definitely harder because there's no momentum. When we have momentum like this, it's easier to lift the leg up. But when there's no momentum, we have to use, the muscles have to contract. They have to keep contracting. And then we have to slowly let them back down, releasing, and back the other way. So you could also work a little bit with one and then try the other one. And as you start to get a little tired with the other one, go back to the one that's a little bit more, the body's moving a little more freely. Remember, the important thing is we keep the shoulders relaxed, the arms are relaxed. You can even give them a little shake like this as you're going back and forth. The hands and fingers are relaxed, and the face. And then let's come back and let's warm up the joints. We're going to open and close the hands like this. And if you want, feel free to do the toes again. This isn't quite exactly the same movement, but it's similar. You can open the fingers and then close, and notice how my toes lift up. And then they open, my toes go flat. Back and forth like this. Hands are soft, or the palms are soft here. So I keep them relaxed. Trying to encourage the blood to come into the extremities with all these movements. So this might be something that you might do in a Tai Chi class, this opening and closing the hands without over-efforting. And if you've taken a Tai Chi class before, you'll notice oftentimes sometime during the class or when you're done with it, everything feels warmer, especially the hands and the fingers. And then go ahead and circle the wrists around. And then back the other way. And if you're standing, please go ahead and sit down. We're going to do the ankles now too. So you may want to use the back of the chair here for support. There's nothing wrong with that. The idea is we always want to be maintaining our length in the spine. And if you're using the back of the chair, it does that, then good for you. That's good. And we're going to lift the feet just a little off the floor and circle the ankles. And see if you can keep them in sync. And then you can even add the hands to it or the wrists like this. Keeping them in sync. And you can even vary the speed. Go a little faster. Let's change directions. So you can start off slow, and you could slowly increase the speed. And then start to get slow again. And you might notice that as we concentrate on all these things, everything else falls away. And then go ahead and lift. Actually, let's lift up one foot like this. I'm going to pat the thigh here. So the thigh is contracting under my hand. I'm going to lift the foot up and I'm going to point and flex like this. Trying to keep the legs straight, especially the knee joint. So this is really important. You know, our knees, we need our knees. And a knee is a hinge joint. It's not made to turn or twist. It's made to bend like this. So we need to make sure that it does that. And let's switch feet. The easiest way to do that is to make sure the leg is coming out straight from the hip and the toes are straight. So I'm going to go back and forth like this. And if this is too easy and you want a little bit more challenge, you could do both feet at the same time. You can even lift the arms up at the same time. Hold the arms out for more of a challenge. And you'll notice when you do this that it's harder on the belly. The belly has to work harder. The more things we get the body to do, the more the spine needs the belly for support. And if we're going to maintain an elongated spine, and we lose a little bit of our length when we hold our arms out. Now we've got to hold the arms up, hold the legs up, keep the spine up, harder work here, and then come back down. Please don't overdo. So the one thing in yoga is we have to be very patient. And, you know, some days we can do more than others. And if we keep practicing regularly over time, we'll be able to do more. So sometimes people get impatient, and I guess that's one of the yoga practices is patience. Hopefully it teaches us patience. And let's lift and extend the leg. And also we're flexing the foot. I'll turn sideways so you can see. Flexing the foot is, notice how the toes are coming back, the heel's extending away. So there's this lengthening on the back side from the buttocks down the back of the leg into the heel. So this exercise is particularly good if you're stuck at a table somewhere. You're eating dinner with someone. You have to be at a table. You have to use your computer, whatever. And if you're like this for, I don't know, half an hour, I mean, if you're at a long dinner, it could be a couple hours. We need something to help loosen up the hamstrings on the backs of the legs. So you could do this exercise, assuming you have room underneath. A lot of times you do. Just make sure you don't kick your neighbor. And also no one will notice. If you sit up with good posture and you do it slowly, no one will notice unless you kick them. They might even notice that there's a smile on your face when you do it. And if you can't go all the way up, that's all right. But notice that when we straighten the leg, we take the bend out of the knee. So the hamstring gets stretched, and the calf muscle too back here gets stretched. We also get to dorsiflex the ankle. So this part right here, a lot of times we lose mobility there. And we need to be able to bend the foot back. If it doesn't bend back very well, it's it affects our balance and our ambulation. So sitting up nice and tall, let's slide forward. And we're going to do some circling. So this is another one where spreading the feet a little further apart, and maybe for this one, even turning them out slightly. Notice they're only turned out a little bit. Helps with broadening the base underneath me so that I can feel more supported. And actually, I am more supported. I can lean forward more without falling out of the chair. Please don't fall out of your chair. If you feel like you're going to fall out of the chair, move the feet a little further away from the chair. And notice that I'm actually sitting way away from the back of the chair. So I have room when I come back to lean back without bumping into the back of the chair. So I don't want to bang into anything. If you do need support with the back of the chair, slide back until you can very gently land on the back of the chair, slide across, and then come forward again. The circles will be, these circles like this will be smaller then, but we don't really want to bang on the chair, but it's okay to slide across it. So we want to practice ahimsa. So not banging our bodies up. Our bodies get banged up enough. Just in everyday life, there's always a little something that happens. We get banged, we run into something, we stub our toe. I mean, those things are going to happen. And we're still circling. And as you circle, feel the movement underneath you. And what I mean is that there's the weight of the body is moving in a circle underneath, so that as I come forward over this foot here, my weight in the foot is more. And then as I come over to the right, to this side, now my weight's less over here and it's more here, and then it's more in this buttock over here, and then more in this buttock. So see if you can feel the weight shifting, follow it moving, that extra weight moving from one spot to another, or really there's really 4 main spots, each foot and each buttock. And then go back the other way and the same thing. See if you can follow the weight moving. If you need to go slower, that's okay. If you need to go slower and smaller circles, because in the beginning that might make it easier to feel what's moving underneath you. And then sit up nice and tall, and let's take some cactus breaths. So inhale and exhale. So we're inhaling. Feel free to give a sigh if you want. And you can adjust the height of the arms. The elbows no higher than the shoulders, though. We want to keep the neck and the shoulders relaxed if we can. So you could work down here, or you could work up to the shoulders with the elbows, or you could go in between. I think we've done this before. Let's try this. This can be a little fun. We'll open, and then as we come back, we'll drop the shoulders slightly, and then we keep so essentially the arms are moving slowly with the opening and closing like this. So we get sort of an S shape or a snake like this with the arms. So it's back and forth. And now the same thing coming up. So we're opening and closing, and at the same time we're elevating the elbows or descending the elbows. They're going back and forth like an S. So if you imagined your hands moving in an S shape, that's the same idea. And then give yourself a little hug like this. So either elbows, upper arms, or if it's okay, if it's accessible to you, you can rest your hands on your shoulders like this. And take a breath. And then release and roll the shoulders a couple times. Do some swimming. So remember, these are all for the joints. This is particularly important when it gets colder out. So when it's colder, it's more important to, it's really important. It's always important to warm up. It's more important to warm up when it's cold, because the blood, it tends to go into the internal part of the body. So the muscles don't get as much blood, which means they're not as warm, which means that they're more likely to hurt them. So we need to make sure that we do a nice warm up. And I like it. I like this feeling of, I know it's not really swimming, but I used to like to swim. I mean, I still like to swim, but don't get to swim very much anymore. And I'm going to do the crawl now. When you do the crawl stroke, go ahead and reach across, out, across, down the opposite leg, letting the belly turn. So you want the belly to turn. You can even bring your feet in a little bit if you want. The same movement as if I was swimming and I had to turn my head to breathe. I'm feeling this nice movement in the belly right here. So as I'm, let's come back up for a second. Let's do the elbows like this. So turning or twisting in yoga is a really important part of the practice. It keeps, not only does it tone the abdomen, but perhaps more importantly, it squeezes and releases the intestines and the internal organs. So when the muscles contract, everything gets a little squeezed, and that helps to move things along down here. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for our health. Keeping things moving. It's the same thing with the, we have a waste system in our body called the lymph system, the lymph nodes. Let's swim a little more. Come back to the swimming and see if you can feel a little bit more the movement in the belly. We were just moving the elbows back to feel that movement. We have our lymph system, which removes waste, and that system relies on our movement. It doesn't have any, there's no blood pressure or anything there. The lymph system, when the muscles squeeze and contract, it pushes the lymph back towards the center of the body. And then let's sit up nice and tall. We're going to do the neck. So sitting up really, really tall and extending the back of the neck up. So turn sideways so you can see. So keeping the face facing the front, and there's a slight curve in the back, but a small one. It's not a big curve like this. And I try not to jut my head forward. Sometimes when we're so used to the computer that we're kind of like this in our posture. So actually, let's do this first. Let's sit up tall, and I'm going to remain sideways, and then bring your hands to rest behind you like this. Or you can bring your hands to the hips like this. So notice that this helps to bring the shoulders back. So anything that we can do here to bring the shoulders back is a good thing. It opens the heart up, it opens the chest up, and counteracts our often posture where the shoulders are rounded forward. We're moving them back and just staying like this. Just sitting up nice and tall and staying like this in a relaxed position. So I'm not forcing my shoulders back. I'll turn around so you can see. I like to interlace my fingers like this and just let them rest. And notice the position of my arm, the position of my shoulders changes when I do this versus this. My shoulders are now forward. Now my shoulders are back. And just even standing like this, one thing to keep in mind is sometimes the belly will pop out. So we may need to engage the belly so we don't have a big sway back like this. So I go like this, and then I may engage the belly slightly and stand up tall, but my shoulders and arms are just resting. And it can be nice to stay like this for a couple of minutes. We won't do it right now, but that's something that you could do throughout the day to counteract sitting, especially sitting at the computer, and keeping the face and eyes soft. So we're keeping everything up here is nice and soft. And we're notice how the shoulders are relaxed. They're just hanging down. You could even also work with your hands on the seat of the chair like this, if you wanted. So it's really just a matter of finding something that opens this area and gently moves the shoulders back. And then let's come back. Let's do the neck. So we're sitting up nice and tall, and we're going to lift the chin slightly and then release it down. So I want to go back and forth like this. You can use the breath here too. Remember to gently engage the feet pressing down so we get an upward movement as we inhale and lift the chin. And then exhale, we release the chin down. Maybe you feel things going back down towards the earth. So the neck is still kind of soft here. It's relaxed, even though the chin's moving up and down a little bit. And notice I'm not going very fast. I want to give the muscles a chance to adjust, especially when I get to the end. I want the muscles back here to feel like they're getting a chance to just relax and stretch. And then I'm going to go to the side next, releasing the head. As I let my head tip, the weight of the head is going to do the stretching on the muscles up here. The weight of the head is going to do the stretching. So I'm not forcing my head over. Could also make a pillow with your hands. That can be really nice. I actually prefer this exercise with the pillow because it really lets the relaxation happen in the neck. And also I feel it in the upper back when I do this, around just between the shoulder blades on one side. And you know, anytime you can relax in a position and feel some gentle stretching, you know you probably need that. These are not extreme positions. So we're not forcing the body into an extreme position where we get a stretch. We're letting the body be in a fairly natural position and then letting the stretch happen, letting the softening happen. And then we're going to come back up and we're going to turn the head. Actually, before we do that, let's massage the ears. So this helps to turn the head, to massage the ears. I'll move a little closer so you can see. Massaging. So massaging and gently tugging at the ear. No pain here, or even discomfort. This is not hurt. If it hurts you, you're doing it with too much vigor. It doesn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt anyway. And if you can't find a way so that it doesn't hurt, please don't do it. So that's one of our rules. If yoga has rules, one of the rules is that we don't do things that inflict pain. If you're used to the no pain, no gain, that was not yoga. It was probably not the best advice unless you're in the military. And sitting up nice and tall. And now let's turn the head. And this can be a nice one to close the eyes. Actually, all these neck exercises, it can be nice to close the eyes and not worry. I don't care how far I'm turning. I want to feel ease. I want to feel like things are really easy to turn. Things are really, really easy turning back and forth. And then the final one is circling like this. So circling around. Notice my circles aren't too big, and I'm also not leaning my head back very much. And you can experiment about how far, how big the circles can be. But remember, start with something that you know is comfortable, and then if you're going to experiment, you just add a little bit. And you try that for a while, you know, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks. And then if you want to experiment a little bit more, you can go from there. So yoga is like that, actually. Let's go from side to side. Yoga is really like an experiment. And, you know, one of the most famous, or a very famous hatha yoga person was B.K.S. Iyengar. And he's known, he wrote a book called Light on Yoga back in, I think it came out in the late 60s. And they used to call him the rubber man of India. He's no longer with us. But he was a big experimenter. He used all kinds of props. He made up all kinds of techniques, or he expanded on all kinds of techniques as part of his experimentation. And I mean, he's a very interesting person, and there's many interviews with him on YouTube and various parts of the internet if you're interested. But Light on Yoga, you'll see he was quite flexible and sitting up nice and tall. And take a couple of breaths here. Let's do some cactus breaths. Inhale and exhale. And you can add a hug to it if you want. Inhale and exhale. Let's do a few more of these. See if you can find some gracefulness and ease here. So as I'm doing these, I'm actually not even hugging myself. I'm just sort of going into the position, my hands gently touch, and then I'm opening back up again. Almost like this swinging, this swaying of the arms, and feeling graceful here. Almost like a bird flapping its wings. Make sure that you change the which arm is on top, though, if you're gonna cross over. So we alternate which arm is on top. One time it's the right, and then the next time it's the left. And let's hold the arms out. We've been working on eagle arms. Let's hold one arm out, and then we're gonna bring the other arm under like this. And take a couple of breaths, relaxing the shoulders. So you can work here anywhere from the hand, and I'm holding right behind the elbow on the upper arm. But if that's uncomfortable, you could also hold under the forearm. I'm working to bring the elbows like this. So that's my first part of eagle arms. And of course, the arms go up like this afterwards. But this is sort of an introduction. So I start anywhere along here, and I take a few breaths. And notice, I'll turn around so you can see. You could do this standing too, by the way. So if you're tired of sitting, you could stand and do this. I'm going to turn around so you might notice how the shoulder blades are moving apart when I do this. And that's part of eagle arms. The chest ends up being kind of compressed, and the shoulder blades are apart. So it's the opposite of this. Shoulder blades are together, and here the shoulder blades are apart. And then release the arms down. We do the other side. So we want to get, so the reason that we're doing this movement here is when we get more movement in the shoulder blades back and forth, the thoracic spine these vertebrae between the shoulder blades are able to move a little more freely. So we're often, because of the way we live, we're often a little stuck between the vertebra in the thoracic spine don't move so well. So let's see. So we hold the other arm out, and then we bring the other arm under somewhere. So we want to find a place where we can be relaxed. The shoulder can be relaxed. You can even let the arm come down a little. So if your shoulder's all bunched up because of your arm raised up, lower the arm down until it's not bunched. So we want space between the ear and the shoulder. And then we're going to stay here for just a few breaths. And as you exhale, relax the shoulders. As you inhale, think about extending the spine up, but keeping the face relaxed and the shoulders relaxed. There can be a tendency to lose our length in the spine. We need to keep reminding ourselves. And then go ahead and come back down. Let's roll the shoulders. So we're going to do the other side again. And then this time we'll cross the arms over, or you can continue to work with what we just did. So we're bringing the elbow under, and then if you're able to, you can do this. You can also work with I just have a little kerchief or handkerchief here, whatever you want to call it, bandana. And so I think it was like this. And I can use this as a way to hold on to something. And relaxing the shoulders. So it's very important to soften the shoulders, relax the face and eyes. Very important to soften the body, even as I extend the spine up. Sometimes as you extend the spine up, you'll notice that you get more of a stretch in these other areas without doing anything. And that's really a release. And that's a demonstration of how everything's interconnected. All the musculature and the fascia systems in the body all pull on each other. And so when we extend the spine up, it pulls on the other areas. And let's do the other side. So we hold the other arm out and then find whatever position works for you. So for your eagle arms again, you could also just rest and breathe. If you're tired of doing eagle arms, you could rest and breathe. And inhaling and exhaling. And you might notice that for me, one side's a lot easier than the other. So it's not uncommon. Actually, I would say it's actually common to be asymmetrical. We are not asymmetrical. We're not symmetrical beings as human beings. Relaxing the shoulders. Then go ahead and release. Let's roll the shoulders. And then the other way. So let's do a little bit more with the legs, a little strengthening. So let's sit back in the chair and go ahead and lift up and straighten. We're going to do this a few times. So we're going to lift up, straighten, and just pause for a moment and then come back down. So some people will be able to make their legs be almost parallel to the ground. People, they won't lift up as much. It'll depend on the strength of the thigh and the abdomen, but also on the flexibility of the hamstring here. So don't force your leg to straight. We want to be able to lift and engage. We're engaging, stretching, and lifting up, and we want to feel good about it. And when I say good, we want it to feel good. We don't want it to feel like we don't want to have any pain or discomfort or feeling like we're putting 100% into it. Think 50%. Think 50%. So it would be better to do 10 of these at 50% And if you wanted to, you could always repeat them later in the day. So some of these strength exercises are, if you can do it, remember to do them twice a day, even for just a minute or two. Maybe not even a minute, maybe just do 10 of them. Sometimes, setting your watch or a clock, if you have to be seated for a long period of time, to remind yourself to get up. I know that's a little trick that they often recommend for better posture and fewer problems, skeletal problems, is to make sure that after you've been seated for a period of time, 20 minutes, a half an hour, you get up even just for 30 seconds or a minute. And let's all stand up if you want to stand up, or you can stay seated. We're going to do mountain pose standing, or you can do mountain pose seated. And so if you're doing it standing, let's add a little, we're going to do a bending of the knees, very slight bending. So notice, I'll turn sideways so you can see. Notice my knees don't go past my toes. So when I look down, I see my toes. So I want to be able to see my toes. So it's a slight bend in the knees. The weight's moving back into my heels a little bit more, but without falling backwards. So I still want to feel stable on the feet. And if you need to, please use a chair. You could also use 2 chairs. You could have one behind you in case you need to sit down. And the other one is, you can have it in front, rest your fingers on it like this. And if you're seated, you'll do an isometric contraction. So things aren't really going to move, but you'll press the feet and you'll feel the quadriceps pressing down or shortening. They'll become more firm. And then we relax. And then I press and relax. You might notice, you might be able to see that my knee goes back slightly. There's a contraction here. So this area shortens when there's a isometric contraction, but it's very small. So this is a really good exercise to do if you can remember to do this a few times during the day. Just even a few times, you can walk up to your kitchen counter like this. This is my kitchen counter, and I could just do a few bends like this. We used to call them knee bends, I think. And people used to do deep knee bends, which probably weren't the best thing for our knees. Unless you have a lot of support from the buttocks, unless you have a really good, really strong muscular system down here, deep knee bends is really hard on the knees. I don't recommend them. And let's step back and forward. So this is another exercise that you could do on your own. And this is another one you can do at your kitchen counter. Rest your hands on the kitchen counter and just step back. You can't really see it because my pants are too loose, but my buttocks here is contracted. It engages, and then it releases when I step forward. So now it's soft. So it contracts. I press the heel back. I extend the back of the leg, and then I come back. And I'm going to switch sides. So I step back. And I'm also standing up tall. So there can be a tendency to collapse over like this. Try to avoid that. We want to keep the length. So we want to keep our good posture. So so our mountain pose is like this. So this is mountain pose with the leg stepping. Think of it that way. My mountain pose is still there. And if you want more of a challenge, you could always lift the arms up when you step back, or one arm like this, like a dancer. So I like that pose a lot. And let's do, before we sit down, let's do just a little balance pose. So remember, you might need your chair like this. We're going to do a crane pose. So it's coming into mountain pose, straighten the legs, stand up nice and tall, And then just tap one leg. This will be our straight leg, our standing leg. Press the foot firmly, and then go ahead and begin to lift up the other foot. Lift it up slowly, and then you can come up as high as you want, or you could even work with the toes on the floor. You could even work with those toes on the floor. Most of my weight, though, is on this leg, on the straight leg. And I'm standing up nice and tall. So sometimes even just the fingertips on here can make it easier to lift off to get and keep the length. So we want to keep our length here. So we're lifting up, keeping the length and extending at the same time. You could even work with one finger. So there's all kinds of ways that you can practice. And let's do the other side. Let's come back down. There's all kinds of ways to practice here. And let's see. So we were doing this will be my straight leg now. And I'm going to stand up tall and then lift up the heel and then lift up the foot. And you could even vary. You could hold your leg, your foot up like this, or you could touch and go too. So if you're familiar with Tai Chi, there's some exercises in Tai Chi that usually the foot's out like this, but it's that same idea. It's that the weight is shifting. The weight is shifting a little bit from the ball of the foot and then into the leg, and then a little bit back into the ball of the foot. It's good practice too, that shifting of the weight. So let's all sit down, please. The shifting of the weight is a really important part of balance. If we can shift the weight slowly from one foot to another, and we can learn to do that with practice, it's going to help our balance. And so I recommend, I don't know if anybody does Tai Chi, but that's a great practice, especially as we get older. It's not as hard on the joints as some things. And let's sit up nice and tall and take a few breaths. Let's do some cactus breaths. And exhale. So we'll complete our class today like we've been doing, with the class ending, the formal part of the class ending right at 11:30, and then you're invited to continue your own Shavasana practice after that at home. Just turn everything off and just continue with your relaxation and breathing for 5 or 10 minutes, ideally. So a 10-minute Shavasana is really nice. It's a really nice way to complete a class. And most people feel a lot better after they do a Shavasana like that. It just makes us feel better. We could all use that right about now. So sitting and breathing, feeling the breath, feeling the belly, relaxing the shoulders, softening the eyes. So we want to feel supported here, so feel free to use the back of the chair. But the most important thing is to feel relaxed here with our spine relatively straight and elongated. Feeling the belly going in and out with the breath. And each time you exhale, allowing the body to relax a little bit more. Perhaps beginning all the way up at the top of the head and relaxing up there. And then softening the eyes. Coming just down the body like a gentle shower. Coming down the body and softening as you come down. So using the visualization to bring our mind's eye to each part of the body as we come down, and allowing to think soft, soft, relax, release, let go. Any of those words help to encourage our body to be more relaxed. Until we get all the way down to the feet, and then we feel the feet grounded. We feel the earth underneath us. We feel a connection to the earth. And thank you for coming to our class today. Please continue your Shavasana on your own. And I'll see everyone next time. Namaste.